The Stardust Drifter, a Cerberus-class battlecruiser, was a titan amongst the United Earth Stellar Fleet's exploratory and defense forces. 800 meters long, she possessed a broad, angular hull forged from duranium alloy, layered with ablative armor plating, a testament to both speed and firepower. The ship wasn't merely built, it felt engineered for the harsh realities of deep space exploration. Her primary armament consisted of 6 colossal plasma cannons, arranged in a menacing dorsal spine like the vertebrae of some cosmic beast. Dozens of point defense laser batteries bristled across her surface, alongside missile launchers capable of unleashing devastating volleys. A reinforced ventral section housed the ship's faster-than-light drive, a shimmering nexus of contained energy, and secondary engineering systems humming with barely controlled power. The Drifter was renowned throughout the fleet for its advanced sensor suite, a network of quantum entanglement detectors, gravitational wave analyzers, and subspace distortion scanners capable of piercing through vast distances to detect anomalies invisible to lesser vessels. A dedicated science lab filled with gleaming instruments and holographic displays provided the resources needed to analyze newly discovered phenomena, from exotic particles to nascent life forms. Commanding this formidable vessel was Captain Valerius Thorne, a veteran of 30 years within the United Earth Stellar Fleet. He joined at 25, driven by a youthful idealism that had weathered into a quiet, steely resolve. Weathered features etched lines around his piercing gray eyes that seemed to hold the weight of countless star systems and difficult decisions. His uniform was immaculate but bore subtle signs of wear, a testament to years spent on bridge duty. He carried himself with an understated authority, radiating a deep sense of responsibility that inspired confidence in his crew. Thorne was known for his calm demeanor under pressure, a rare quality in the volatile world of interstellar exploration, and his willingness to make choices others shied away from. Captain Thorne sat within the command chair, a marvel of ergonomic engineering. Centrally located at the apex of the semicircular bridge, it offered optimal situational awareness. The chair was upholstered in dark gray synthetic leather, molded to conform perfectly to his form. Integrated biometric sensors constantly monitored his vital signs, relaying data to the ship's medical AI. A direct neural interface allowed him to access ship systems with thought commands, a tempting shortcut he rarely used, preferring the tactile reassurance of manual control. Small tactical displays were built into the armrests, displaying real-time sensor readings and weapon targeting solutions. The bridge itself was a spacious, semicircular chamber, offering panoramic views through a massive segmented viewport screen spanning nearly half the forward bulkhead. The screen wasn't merely glass, it was a dynamic holographic projection system capable of displaying star charts, sensor readings, tactical data, and external visuals with breathtaking clarity. Nebulae swirled within its depths, constellations blazed across its surface, and distant galaxies shimmered like jewels scattered on black velvet. The Stardust Drifter had been charting unexplored sectors near the Kepler 186F system, a routine survey mission designed to catalog potential resources and identify any signs of pre-existing civilizations. When they encountered it, the derelict alien vessel.
Report.
Thorne barked, his voice tight with controlled tension. The word echoed slightly in the vast chamber, amplified by the ship's internal comm system. From the sensor station wall panel to the left of Captain Thorne, Lieutenant Elara Vance responded. A young woman in her early 30s, she possessed shoulder-length brunette hair, pulled back into a practical bun, and eyes that darted across the complex array of holographic displays before her. The sensor's console was a chaotic symphony of light and data, energy signatures pulsing with alien rhythms, gravitational anomalies warping space-time, and subspace distortions hinting at unknown forces. Ilara, an exceptionally skilled sensor specialist, used advanced algorithms to filter out noise and identify potential threats, her fingers dancing across the controls with practiced ease.
Captain,
She said, her voice crisp and professional.
we've encountered a significant anomaly. A large vessel, designation currently unknown. Its energy signature is unlike anything I've ever seen, almost organic in its complexity.
She zoomed in on a holographic projection of the object, revealing intricate patterns within its structure. Situated opposite Ilara on the right panel wall, Petty Officer Clevin Davies, a young man barely out of the academy, diligently scanned for any possible communications from the vessel. His youthful face was etched with concentration as he managed all external communications using a dedicated console equipped with encrypted channels and real-time translation capabilities. He adjusted his headset, listening intently for any sign of life or signal.
All clear on communications, Captain.
Davies reported after a moment.
No signals detected. The vessel is completely silent.
At the tactical station, located directly behind the captain's chair, Lieutenant Commander Anya Volkov displayed a 3D tactical map of the surrounding space. Age 42, with golden blonde hair pulled back in a bun and 5 years of experience aboard the Stardust Drifter, she was a formidable officer known for her sharp intellect and unwavering focus. She could control the ship's weapon systems and coordinate defensive maneuvers from this station with ruthless efficiency.
All clear on weapon energy signatures, Captain.
Volkov confirmed, her voice calm and measured.
No active defenses detected.
The derelict alien vessel was unlike anything they'd ever seen. It wasn't built so much as grown, its dark obsidian-like material possessing a strange organic texture that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Its surface wasn't smooth, but covered in subtle ridges and veins that pulsed with faint, internal energy, like the slow rhythm of a sleeping giant. The long, asymmetrical design defied conventional engineering principles, looking as if an advanced AI had conceived it without regard for human notions of aesthetics or functionality. The vessel was colossal, easily over 4 kilometers long, 2 kilometers wide, and 1.5 kilometers high, dwarfing even the Stardust Drifter. In fact, the cruiser could comfortably fit inside its cavernous interior. The alien vessel was riddled with plasma blast scars that crisscrossed the hull like grotesque veins. These weren't merely damage. They seemed to have altered the vessel's structure, creating strange distortions in space-time around them, shimmering pockets where reality itself seemed to bend and warp. The scars emitted a pulsating glow, an eerie testament to some long-forgotten conflict.
Damage assessment?
Captain Thorne demanded, his gaze fixed on the holographic projection of the alien vessel.
Extensive, Captain.
Lieutenant Ilara replied grimly.
Plasma cannon fire, judging by the residual energy signatures. Evidence of intense plasma weapon fire. Centuries old, perhaps even a millennia ago. The intensity is staggering. It's hard to accurately assess with the complex radiation fields emanating from the vessel.
Ship's energy status?
Thorne inquired, his voice betraying a flicker of concern. A gruff voice crackled over the comm system. Chief Engineer Rhys McTavish, a burly Scotsman with a perpetually furrowed brow and a reputation for fixing anything with duct tape and ingenuity, responded.
The vessel's power core is flickering, sir. Minimal output, but definitely active. It's strange that it's still operational after all this time. Life signs are negative, but there are residual energy readings running the length of the vessel. Faint, almost like an echo.
He paused, then added with a hint of bewilderment.
There's no visible propulsion system either, Captain. Instead, faint shimmering fields suggest manipulation of space-time for movement, a very advanced form of propulsion that has only been theorized by Earth scientists. It explains the complex radiation fields Lieutenant Ilara is detecting.
Thorne felt an icy chill crawl down his spine, despite the regulated temperature of the bridge. He didn't like what he was seeing and feeling. Having been in countless battles, he knew there was danger here, though he couldn't define it.
Magnify that section.
He ordered, pointing to a particularly large gash near what appeared to be a central spire on the alien vessel. Lieutenant Commander Anya Volkov swiftly complied, zooming in on the location of the image, revealing intricate carvings within the damaged section of the hull, swirling patterns and geometric shapes unlike any known language or symbolic form. They seemed organic, almost alive, as if etched by some unknown biological process.
Xylos?
Murmured Dr. Valerius Thorne, Valerius's younger brother and the ship's xeno-archaeologist. Brilliant but somewhat eccentric, Aris was in his early 30s, driven by an insatiable curiosity about lost civilizations. He tended to be more impulsive than his brother, often prioritizing discovery over caution. His uniform was slightly rumpled, and he frequently forgot to shave. He paled, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and fascination.
The legends, they spoke of the Xylos, a precursor race, masters of energy and space-time manipulation. They vanished without a trace millennia ago. Their technology, their understanding of the universe, it was said to be beyond comprehension. Let's designate the vessel Xylos Remnant 7, Captain.
Aris suggested, his voice trembling slightly with excitement.
This would be the 7th object ever found related to the Xylos culture, a monumental discovery. All other finds were mere trinkets in comparison.
Legends are just that, Harris.
Captain Thorne said sharply, though he felt a prickle of unease himself.
Prepare for battle stations, shields to maximum, weapons hot.
He issued the order with unwavering authority. The bridge erupted in controlled chaos as the crew responded. Red alert lights pulsed, casting long shadows across their faces. The Stardust drifter rotated slowly, bringing its formidable plasma cannons to bear on the derelict alien vessel. As they approached cautiously, a low hum resonated through the Stardust drifter, a deep, mournful tone that seemed to vibrate in their bones. Suddenly, a single beam of energy lanced out from the alien vessel's damaged spire, not as an attack, but as a signal. It struck the Stardust drifter's shields with surprising force, then abruptly ceased.
What was that?
Demanded Captain Thorne, his hand instinctively reaching for the comm controls. Lieutenant Elara replied, her fingers flying across the sensors.
It wasn't hostile, Captain. The energy signature. It felt like a query.
Thorne stared at the derelict vessel, his mind racing. The ancient vessel, ravaged and silent for an eon, had reached out to them. But why? And what secrets did it hold within its damaged, decaying hull?
Hold fire.
He commanded, his voice firm and reassuring.
Prepare an away team. Dr. Aris, you're with me. We're going aboard.
He paused, then added,
Petty Officer Davies, contact Sergeant Vore. Tell him to assemble a full tactical team and meet us in the shuttle bay.
Sergeant Kalen Vore, a hardened veteran in his late 30s who led an elite security detail, received Thorne's order and immediately began assembling a full tactical team to meet the captain in the shuttle bay. The boarding shuttle detached from the Stardust drifter, appearing like a dot in the cosmic void as it approached the colossal silhouette of the alien derelict vessel. It was a tiny mote of defiance swallowed by the darkness surrounding the Leviathan, a vessel that dwarfed even the most ambitious human engineering feats. Captain Thorne felt a familiar knot of apprehension tighten in his stomach as he led the descent party into the alien maw. Beside him stood Aris, the xeno-archaeologist, practically vibrating with contained excitement. Reese, their chief engineer, ever vigilant and pragmatic. Kalen, the team's stoic Marine sergeant, and his a security detail of 44 heavily armed Marines clad in reinforced armor that gleamed faintly under the shuttle's internal lights. The docking port of the alien vessel wasn't what they expected. It wasn't a traditional airlock, but rather an enormous aperture carved into what appeared to be the underside of the vessel, a disconcerting perspective given its sheer scale. The opening pulsed with a swirling vortex of iridescent energy, a shimmering curtain that stabilized and allowed entry into the vessel's interior. As they walked onto the surface of the vessel, Captain Thorne noticed the walls were lined with intricate carvings, unlike anything he'd ever seen. They weren't static. The patterns seemed to writhe and shift as you drew closer, revealing glimpses of impossible geometries and alien symbols, a dizzying kaleidoscope that threatened to overwhelm his senses. Then, as they walked further into the vessel, a huge vortex opened into a vast chamber, bathed in a faint, pulsating blue light emanating from the walls themselves, casting long, ethereal shadows that danced with an unsettling grace.
Atmosphere is breathable. Barely.
Reese's voice crackled over their comms, laced with a nervous edge.
High concentration of inert gases, mostly xenon and argon, I think. Minimal gravity within this section of the vessel feels almost like walking on the moon, but a bit heavier. Facilitates quick movement through this vast space, but be careful not to overshoot your landings.
He adjusted his helmet's internal sensors.
My readings are unusual. There's a subtle resonance in the air, almost musical.
As they continued walking down a long corridor, they came upon the central hub. Breathtaking and terrifying in equal measure, it stretched before them, a colossal chamber easily over a kilometer across, an impossible space carved directly into the alien vessel's interior. Buildings rose in improbable angles, defying Euclidean geometry. Towers spiraled towards unseen ceilings, connected by shimmering bridges of pure energy that hummed with contained power. Everything was silent, eerily still. The blue light pulsed rhythmically, like a colossal heartbeat, casting long, distorted shadows that writhed and shifted with every flicker. Dust motes danced in the beams, frozen mid-air in the low gravity. Aris gasped, his breath fogging slightly on his visor.
Remarkable.
He breathed, his voice filled with awe.
The Xylos, they were masters of manipulating space-time and energy. Look at this architecture. It's non-Euclidean. Perspectives shift and distort as you move through the space. The very fabric of reality seems to bend to their will.
He reached out a gloved hand, compelled to touch a wall, but Kalen's grip on his arm stopped him.
Doctor.
Kalen reminded him sternly, his voice clipped and professional. Protocol. We don't know what we're dealing with. Contamination is a serious concern. He scanned the surroundings with practiced efficiency, his hand resting near the pulse laser rifle slung across his chest.
Marines, maintain perimeter security. Eyes open.
As they ventured deeper into the city, Captain Thorne felt an unsettling prickling at the back of his neck. The carvings he had seen from afar were everywhere, intricate patterns that covered every surface, pulsing with a hypnotic rhythm. They weren't just decorative, they seemed to communicate, whispering secrets in a language he couldn't understand, but instinctively sensed was ancient and powerful. He noticed subtle shifts within the patterns, fleeting images of swirling nebulae, geometric shapes morphing into impossible creatures, and what looked like faces. Intricate carvings, swirling patterns, and geometric shapes cover every surface.
Alara reported over the comms, her voice tight with apprehension. They're emitting a complex energy signature, Captain, localized around those carvings, almost like resonance. It's intensifying as we move deeper.
She paused.
I'm detecting fluctuations in space-time near some of these structures.
The city opened into a vast plaza dominated by a towering crystalline tree, the Xylos' apparent central power source. Its branches pulsed with an intense, otherworldly blue light that illuminated the surrounding area with an ethereal glow. The entire chamber resonated with a low hum that vibrated deep within one's bones, a palpable energy that seemed to seep into their very being. Holographic projections flickered into existence sporadically, fleeting images of the Xylos civilization at its height, bustling cities shimmering with light, advanced technology beyond human comprehension, and beings seemingly in harmony with their environment. The floor was a smooth, polished surface made from the same obsidian-like material as the hull. It subtly vibrated with the low hum emanating from the crystalline tree, creating an unsettling sensation beneath their boots. Captain Thorne noticed faint scorch marks on some of the surfaces, subtle reminders that this paradise hadn't always been so silent. Suddenly, the ground beneath them began to tremble. The blue light intensified, bathing the chamber in a blinding radiance. The carvings on the walls started to glow brighter, their patterns swirling faster, coalescing into recognizable forms. Holographic projections erupted all around them, not static images this time, but dynamic scenes unfolding with startling clarity. They depicted beings unlike anything Captain Thorne had ever imagined. Very tall, slender figures with elongated limbs and large, luminous eyes that seemed to hold the weight of millennia. They moved with an ethereal grace, manipulating energy fields with effortless ease, their forms shimmering like heat haze.
They're recordings.
Aris stammered, his face pale beneath his visor.
Historical records, showing the Xylos at their height. Their mastery over energy. It's staggering.
He reached out again, this time to record a holographic sequence with his datapad. The projections showed a thriving civilization, cities of light built into colossal crystalline structures, advanced technology that seemed to defy physics, and beings seemingly in harmony with their environment. Then the images shifted abruptly, the idyllic scenes dissolving into chaos. A cataclysmic event unfolded before them. Colossal energy surges ripping through the city, devastating explosions tearing apart buildings, and the Xylos fleeing in panic, their graceful movements replaced by desperate scrambles for survival. The final image was of a single figure standing amidst the devastation, raising its hands as if attempting to contain an overwhelming force. A swirling vortex of raw energy threatening to consume everything.
What happened here?
Captain Thorne asked, his voice barely above a whisper, the weight of the scene pressing down on him. He felt a profound sense of loss for a civilization he'd never known. Before anyone could answer, the crystalline tree pulsed with blinding light, forcing them all to shield their eyes. Then a holographic projection materialized directly in front of them. Not a recording this time, but something present. It was one of the Xylos beings, its form shimmering and translucent, radiating an aura of immense power and profound sadness.
"Greetings,"
It said, its voice resonating within their minds rather than through their ears, bypassing their auditory systems entirely.
"I am Lyra, custodian of memory."
Her eyes, large and luminous, seemed to pierce directly into Captain Thorne's soul. Sergeant Kalen instinctively raised his weapon, but Captain Thorne stopped him with a gesture.
Stand down.
He commanded softly. He turned towards the holographic projection.
What is this place? What happened to your people?
Lyra's form flickered slightly, as if struggling against an unseen force.
"We sought to harness the energy of the interdimensional void, a power beyond comprehension, believing we could control it. We were tragically mistaken. It consumed us, twisted our reality."
A wave of palpable sorrow emanated from her form.
The plasma damage, was that self-inflicted?
Captain Thorne pressed, his gaze fixed on Lyra's shimmering face. He needed to understand the scale of their failure.
"A desperate attempt to contain it."
Lyra replied, her voice filled with a profound sadness that resonated deep within them.
"But it was too late. Our vessel became a prison, a repository of our memories, and the lingering echoes of the interdimensional void's power.
She paused, her form flickering more violently now.
And a beacon for what remains."
Why contact us?
Aris asked tentatively, his voice trembling slightly. He seemed captivated by Lyra's presence, despite the terrifying circumstances. Lyra's form grew fainter, as if drawing on dwindling reserves of energy.
"The energy, It is stirring again. It seeks release. You possess technology that can contain it. Containment fields, dampeners. But also, you are vulnerable to its influence. The interdimensional void whispers promises of power, and few can resist its allure.
She paused, a flicker of warning in her luminous eyes.
Of this place, forget what you have seen for your own survival.
Her form began to dissolve into shimmering particles.
And do not seek the knowledge or power of the interdimensional void, or it will consume you.
The blue light dimmed slightly as Lyra's projection vanished, leaving them standing in the echoing silence of the silent city, the weight of a lost civilization pressing down on their shoulders. The low hum from the crystalline tree seemed louder now, more ominous. Captain Thorne knew they had stumbled upon something far greater and far more dangerous than they could have ever imagined. Lyra's warning, a frantic plea about an insidious influence woven into the very fabric of the Xylos vessel, hung heavy in the air, a suffocating shroud as Captain Thorne, Aris, Rhys, Ilara, Kaelin, and the Marines retreated back towards the shuttle. But something had irrevocably shifted. The pervasive blue light that bathed the city wasn't merely illuminating anymore. It pulsed with an almost aggressive intensity, radiating outwards like a silent scream. The intricate carvings that adorned every surface of the Xylos vessel, swirling geometries and impossible angles depicting scenes both beautiful and unsettling, now throbbed with a hypnotic rhythm, their surfaces seeming to ripple beneath the light. And then there was the hum. It wasn't just audible. It resonated deep within their bones, a low-frequency vibration that crawled under their skin and settled in their minds like an unwelcome guest.
I'm getting anomalous readings.
Ilara reported from her position near the rear of the group, her voice strained and tight with barely suppressed panic. Her fingers danced across the holographic display built into her wrist console, a frantic ballet of diagnostics.
Energy fluctuations are spiking exponentially. It's actively interfering with our systems. From what I can tell, shields are fluctuating on the Stardust Drifter, and comms are degrading.
She trailed off, shaking her head slightly.
It feels alive.
As they navigated the labyrinthine streets of the Xylos vessel, Thorne noticed a disturbing change in his crew. Kaelin, usually a bastion of stoic discipline, a man whose face rarely betrayed emotion beyond focused determination, stood frozen before a particularly complex carving on a column, his gaze fixed with an unsettling intensity. His eyes were glazed over, reflecting the blue light like polished gemstones, and his jaw hung slack. One of the younger Marines, Corporal Miller, began muttering to himself, tracing patterns on the dusty floor with his boot. "Beautiful, so beautiful," he whispered, a vacant smile stretching across his face.
The patterns, they understand.
Aris, ever observant, caught Captain Thorne's eye, and his expression was etched with profound concern. He clutched his head.
They're being influenced.
He whispered, the words barely audible above the pervasive hum.
The resonance, it's burrowing into their minds. It's like a siren song, promising knowledge if you just listen.
Captain Thorne felt it too, a subtle but insistent pull towards the carvings, an overwhelming desire to understand them. Not with logic or analysis, but with something deeper, more primal. It was insidious, like a whisper slithering into his consciousness, promising enlightenment, transcendence, if only he would surrender himself to its embrace. He fought back with every ounce of willpower, focusing on the mission, securing any data Lyra had gathered, and extracting his team alive, clinging desperately to the familiar weight of duty. He pictured his daughter's face, her bright smile a shield against the encroaching influence.
We need to get out of here,
Captain Thorne ordered, his voice tight and strained, fighting to maintain its authority.
Move, now, double time.
He scanned the faces around him, searching for any sign of resistance to the growing mental pressure. But Kalen didn't respond. He remained rooted to the spot, transfixed by a swirling pattern that seemed to writhe on the column before him. His breathing had become shallow and rapid.
It's showing me.
He murmured, his voice distant and hollow, as if filtered through layers of static. His eyes glowed with an unnatural luminescence, reflecting the blue light in fractured shards.
The truth. The real truth.
Suddenly, Kalen turned towards Captain Thorne, his expression utterly blank, devoid of any recognizable emotion. The familiar lines of determination that usually framed his mouth had vanished, replaced by a chilling emptiness.
You don't understand,
he said in a voice that wasn't quite his own, deeper, resonant with an alien quality. It was as if another being spoke through him.
This power, it can save us all. It will save us all.
He raised his laser pulse rifle, not at the unseen aliens or any perceived threat, but directly at Captain Thorne, the barrel unwavering.
Kalen, stand down.
Captain Thorne shouted, adrenaline surging through his veins. He instinctively drew his own sidearm, a heavy-duty laser plasma pistol that felt reassuringly solid in his grip. Then a brutal firefight erupted within the silent city. The echoing blasts of energy weapons shattered the oppressive stillness, ricocheting off the alien walls with blinding flashes. Marines, some already exhibiting signs of influence, their movements jerky and uncoordinated, their eyes vacant, hesitated for a fraction of a second before reluctantly turning on Kalen. Aris scrambled for cover behind a crumbling pillar, shielding his head as energy blasts whizzed past, leaving trails of shimmering heat in the air. The smell of ozone filled the air, acrid and sharp. Captain Thorne managed to disarm Kalen with a well-aimed shot that severed the weapon's power conduit, but he knew it was only a temporary victory. The influence of the resonance energy, whatever it was growing stronger with every passing moment, tightening its grip on his crew's minds. He looked at Aris, who was struggling to maintain his composure, sweat beading on his forehead and his hands trembling as he fought against the insidious pull.
There has to be a way to stop this.
Aris gasped, his voice ragged with exertion.
Lyra. She mentioned their vessel contained something, a failsafe perhaps. Something we can use to disrupt the resonance.
Captain Thorne made a desperate decision, knowing it was likely a suicide mission.
Alara, prepare the shuttle for immediate departure. Tell Reese to get everyone ready to move out as soon as possible.
He glanced at his remaining Marines, their faces pale and strained.
Hold off the others as long as you can. Buy us some time.
Captain Thorne made a desperate decision. He and Aris raced back towards the central hub, dodging energy blasts and fighting against the insidious pull of the resonance that threatened to overwhelm them. As they reached the crystalline tree, a towering structure of shimmering fractal geometry that pulsed with an inner light, Captain Thorne noticed something he hadn't seen before. A small, almost hidden panel at its base, seamlessly integrated into the crystalline surface.
Is this what we could be looking for?
It might be.
Aris replied, getting to work at opening the panel, his fingers flying across the alien symbols etched upon it.
It's a containment field generator,
he exclaimed, his voice filled with a desperate hope.
But it needs an energy source, a massive one. Something capable of disrupting the resonance on a planetary scale.
He looked at Captain Thorne with wide, desperate eyes.
The Stardust Drifter's core.
You're asking me to sacrifice the Drifter?
Thorne's voice, usually a steady baritone, cracked with disbelief. He stared at Aris, his face a granite mask etched with horror. Sweat beaded on his forehead, reflecting the blue lights that pulsed across the room.
That ship is our lifeline. It's everything we have. Years of work, countless jumps, home.
Aris didn't meet Captain Thorne's gaze, his fingers dancing frantically over the containment panel in a chaotic ballet of desperation. Wires sparked and hissed as he rerouted power conduits, his brow furrowed in concentration.
It's the only way, Captain,
he insisted, his voice tight with urgency.
The resonance, it's spreading exponentially. It's like a virus, feeding on energy, warping reality. If it breaches this alien vessel, If it escapes into the void, it will consume entire star systems. We've seen what it does to mines, to ships, to people.
He looked at Thorne with pleading eyes, dark circles under his bloodshot gaze.
We can contain the resonance here within the derelict vessel, but it needs a power source equivalent to a battle cruiser's core. Something stable, something sacrificial.
Thorne glanced back towards the corridor that leads into the central hub. The firefight was escalating into a maelstrom of laser fire and guttural alien roars. His remaining crew, barely 20 souls now, were desperately holding off the Marines that had been taken over by the resonance, their once crisp uniforms stained with blood and grime. The controlled Marines' movements were jerky, unnatural. Their eyes glowed with that unsettling blue light, reflecting the alien city's eerie luminescence. He knew his troops wouldn't last much longer. Each blast of energy seemed to amplify the resonance, twisting the already bizarre architecture into grotesque shapes. Captain Thorne thought of Earth, a distant blue marble in his memory, of billions of lives hanging in the balance. He thought of his daughter, Maya, her laughter echoing in his mind, a future he might never see again. But then he pictured the resonance's tendrils reaching out, consuming everything in its path. The weight of that possibility pressed down on him, crushing any flicker of hope. He thought of the Stardust Drifter, his ship, his home, about to be sacrificed for an unknown outcome, a gamble against forces they barely understood.
Prepare a remote override sequence.
Captain Thorne said grimly, the words tasting like ash in his mouth.
I'm going to manually initiate the transfer, he told Aris.
He felt the familiar ache of responsibility settle deep within him, a burden he'd carried throughout his career. Aris recoiled as if struck.
Captain, that's suicide. The energy surge will be catastrophic. You'll vaporize. His voice cracked with fear.
There has to be another way.
He gestured wildly at the containment panel.
I can try. I can reroute more power.
Captain Thorne shook his head, a weary sadness in his eyes.
There isn't time, Aris, and you know it.
He activated his comms, the static crackling briefly before connecting to Elara.
Elara, prepare for immediate departure. Get everyone out of here. Do not look back. I repeat, do not look back.
He turned and looked at Aris and told him to get aboard the shuttle with the last surviving Marines. Ignoring Aris's desperate pleas that rang in his head like a mournful echo. As Aris reached the docking bay, he saw Elara already at the helm of the shuttle, her face pale but resolute beneath a tangle of dark hair. She gave him a curt nod, her eyes conveying a silent understanding of the sacrifice to come. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency over the controls, her jaw tight with suppressed emotion. The hatch hissed shut behind them, sealing them off from the derelict vessel and its impending doom.
Godspeed, Captain,
she said softly, her voice barely audible above the hum of the engines. He took one last look at the alien city. The towering structures, once bizarrely beautiful, now pulsed with an almost malevolent intensity. The eerie blue light seemed to writhe and twist, reflecting the chaos within. He could feel the resonance pressing against his mind, a cacophony of voices whispering promises of power and threats of oblivion. They offered him knowledge, control, but at what cost? He closed his eyes, picturing Earth, picturing Maya's face, her bright smile. He pictured a future free from the resonance's influence, a future where humanity could reach for the stars without fear. Then, with a deep breath that felt like swallowing lead, he flipped the activation switch on the crystalline tree. A blinding surge of energy erupted from the crystalline structure, bathing Thorne in its incandescent glow. He cried out as raw power coursed through his body, threatening to tear him apart. The derelict vessel shuddered violently, groaning under the strain of the energy being transferred from the Stardust Drifter's core. A marvel of engineering and years of accumulated knowledge were now beyond humanity's reach. As the power transfer into the containment field generator took place, the intricate carvings on the walls pulsed with an unbearable intensity, their alien structure seeming to writhe and twist before abruptly going dark. The resonance vanished. Silence descended upon the alien city, a silence deeper and more profound than anything one could imagine or experience. It was a silence that was final. On board the shuttle, Ilara watched in horror as the Stardust Drifter began to experience breaches, its systems collapsing under the strain of the energy transfer. When the shuttle made it aboard the Stardust Drifter, warning klaxons were blaring, red lights flashing across all parts of the ship as crews worked feverishly to stabilize the ship. The bridge holographic display showed the derelict's hull glowing with an intense blue light, a beacon of raw power, then slowly fading as the containment field stabilized, a shimmering cage around the alien city and the resonance.
Captain?
She called out desperately over the comms, her voice cracking with panic.
Thorne, report.
But there was only static, a cold and empty void where his voice should have been. The silence stretched on, punctuated by the groans of their now crippled ship. The Stardust Drifter, partially crippled, limped away from the alien derelict vessel, leaving behind a silent tomb, a monument to Captain Thorne's sacrifice. Ilara looked back at the receding image of the alien vessel through the viewport. It stood alone in the dark, cold, endless void, a forgotten relic guarding a terrible secret, its blue glow now muted, contained. The echo of Xylos was silenced, but at a cost that would forever haunt humanity, and especially Ilara and Aris, who carried the weight of the captain's sacrifice and the burden of their own survival. She knew, with chilling certainty, that this victory was only temporary, a fragile reprieve in an endless war against the darkness.